It's Thursday morning. It's Sidney by the Sea Rotary meeting in the Shoal Center for breakfast to create a better community and to try and do the best we can to strengthen the world. My name's John Trelevin. I'm the speaker seeker for our club, and my instruction from club members is to take them out of the room. It's a lovely room at the Shoal Center, I should say, but take them out of the room for a little while with a really good guest speaker. And it's my pleasure to introduce to our viewers today, Mark Collins, who is president of Clipper Navigation Victoria and chair of the board of the Seattle company, which owns this company, which is also part of a global ferry group owned out of Germany. Mark has a long history in British Columbia. Of course, he was for years with BC Ferries. The last 5 years, I think, Mark, you were CEO of that corporation, knows us well, lives in North Saanich, almost Sidney, but not quite. And he brought us this morning a really interesting view, both of his business and of the environment in which he and his colleagues on both sides of the border, and indeed in Europe, try to ensure that the world continues to be round. Mark, you had several points to raise in terms of the, let's say, that's changing dynamics in tourism flow between Victoria and Seattle, which might be a good place to start.
Sure. Well, thanks, John. Pleasure to be here. Yeah, it's been a difficult time in the last year for cross-border. So tourism is a discretionary activity. You know, people don't have to spend the money on tourism. They choose to spend it. And they choose to spend it where they think they're going to have the greatest experiences. And right now, with the geopolitical tension, there's concern that the experience of crossing the border and going to Victoria from an American perspective may not be great. And certainly Canadians, of course, are in the midst of the biggest nationalistic surge that we've probably seen since the Second World War. And Canadians feel, in large part, it's their patriotic duty not to travel to the United States if they can do so. So none of this bodes very well for a service that operates exclusively between Canada and the United States. So it's been a very challenging year for us. Our ridership is down 35% on Canadian travel and 20% on American travel. So all told, our overall business is down about 25% compared to 2024.
You mentioned, Mark, sort of the attitudes that you experience in the state of Washington. As you know, our Rotary Club is part of a binational district, and our current governor actually resides in the state of Washington. And I believe that those connections, like your business connections, are even more important now than they were in a normal time between our two countries. These are the sinews that will continue to bind us.
I couldn't agree more, John. We like to think of Clipper as a bridge or hands across the water, and say bringing Seattle and Victoria together. And we've been in business for 40 years. And during that time, we've helped develop the relationship between Seattle and Victoria, and more broadly between British Columbia and Washington State. I'm Canadian, but I spend half my time in Seattle because that's where the other half of our business is. And I will say there's a deep appreciation and a sophisticated understanding amongst coastal Washington residents for British Columbia. There's a friendship. There's a long relationship. There's families which exist and live on both sides of the border. There's deep, deep relationships. But as you move south and east from coastal Washington, you'll find that the understanding of British Columbia, fades a little bit. So one of our challenges is to help people understand that Victoria and southern Vancouver Island is a warm and friendly place, that it's a place that's interesting to go, and to keep those relationships alive, the relationships that are under a lot of strain right now. We see it as part of our mission to help keep those alive.
This is very encouraging to hear, John, Mark. I am a huge NFL football fan and a Seattle Seahawks fan. I love Seattle, and generally will go down, but haven't because of the geopolitical situation. And so this is encouraging to hear that, in fact, talking to you, I feel comfort. I think, the real, and you might have addressed this in your conversation with the Sydney by the Sea Rotary, but a lot of the fear that I've heard amongst other colleagues who would generally have gone down to Seattle to watch a few games is what happens at the border. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because all we're hearing is a lot of fear that they're going to take our phones and they're going to rip through our phones and that sort of thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's certainly a lot of negative media around out there, and justifiably so, in my view. Firstly, if you're a Seattle Seahawks fan, you must be really happy right now.
Oh yes, go Hawks!
And so, and we at Clipper, we recognize the importance of sports fans to our business, and we have actually special programs in place for sports fans. So you must call me, and we will take care of you.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I got one last game, and it's in San Francisco next year.
I know that's kind of right. But as to the border, we've had no difficulties on our border crossing. As you know, when you ride Clipper and when you're going to the United States, you clear U.S. immigration in Victoria. And the border guards and border patrol people in Victoria are generally extremely friendly and helpful. We've had no difficulty there. So we haven't seen the sorts of tensions that I know are occurring in other places. That's not to say we're immune from it, but we've seen no evidence of it so far. Northbound, Americans and Canadians will clear Canadian customs in Victoria. So you're dealing with Canadians on Canadian soil. So in either case, the immigration activity, whether you're north or southbound, is occurring on Canadian soil.
Oh,
And
okay.
I would say generally the mood has been pretty good. They're thorough, for sure. But the mood has not been one of tension like we have seen in other areas.
Yeah, or reported on. Well, it's very encouraging to hear, because that's one of the primary concerns and barriers is that border point. Seattle, I love, and would love to go there and visit so many more times. And folks of my age group, which is, shall I lie and say I'm a young man? I am not. But very encouraging to, okay, that's great information that many don't know.
And as somebody who travels to Seattle half of my time, I can say I've never had a difficulty either at the border or in Seattle. Again, Seattle has a sophisticated understanding of the political situation and of British Columbia, and there's a real desire on the part of coastal Washingtonians to stay close to BC.
Great, excellent. Just if you could spend a moment on the kind of technological revolution that seems to be going on in some bits of the ferry industry, and your company is very much involved in that.
Yeah. So, of course, as Clipper, we're facing some difficult years with our traditional business. And so, like any business, and we're a fully private sector for-profit entity, we have no subsidized services to fall back on at all. We need to pivot and try and find a business model that works in this current environment. We have to adapt to what we're doing. So one way we're doing that is by looking at new marine technologies that are reducing the cost of operation. Chief amongst those is electric propulsion, and even a specialized form of electric propulsion called e-foiling or electric foiling technologies. And these are vessels that actually ride on hydrofoils propelled by electric motors. Now, hydrofoils themselves have been around for decades, going back to the 1930s even. But what's new now is that the hydrodynamic characteristics are very sophisticated. The materials are very lightweight, like carbon fiber and aluminum alloys. And the electric propulsion is now integrated right into the foil in a very clever and efficient way. So we're seeing this new generation of admittedly small ferries from 40 to 150 passengers. These small ferries are seeing energy reductions of up to 80%. And in most ferry companies, fuel is one of your biggest expenses. Actually, I will say every ferry company. Fuel is one of your biggest expenses. And if you can take that big expense and reduce it by 80%, you have just changed the underlying economics of the ferry route. So maybe we can open up new routes which haven't existed before, but for which there is demand, and we can serve them with this new generation of vessel. There's added benefits too, is these vessels are very, very light footprints on the environment. They're quieter, they're zero emission, and very low wake. So the disturbance that they cause in the marine environment and to people's communities is very low. So we're very excited about this and seeing if we can find applications for this in Canada.
Now, Mark, just so you know, John in his civilian life is the coordinator of the Sidney Breakfast Club, which meets once a month in the same room we had breakfast this morning. And that's where I met Alex. That Leanne works in that wonderful trade association, Marine Trade Association. John, I think you've got a possible speaker for the Sidney Breakfast Club in the gentleman sitting beside me.
If I can get his contact information, you bet I'm going to try.
Mark,
Especially with the Seahawks connection.
Yes. Happy to help.
Mark, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You definitely took us out of the room, and your business and the structure of the business is very much in the bullseye of the sort of dynamics of change that we're seeing in the world today. And the Victoria Clipper and the work that you do for the Seattle company, that's part of the sinews that will continue to bind us no matter what. Thank you so very much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, John.
Take care, guys.